Wait, Chrono isn't dead? Yeah, it may be one of the less optimal classes. Well, let's be honest, it's probably the worst class in PvP right now. But there is still hope for it. With 3v3 coming out, there's actually a purpose for Chrono because it is the teamfight version of Mesmer. And with a little bit of support, it actually is really good because it can do huge combos to get kills for its team, and that's kind of all that Deathmatch is about. And obviously in Conquest, you need to be a little bit more self-sustainable with whatever build you play, especially if you're a Mesmer. So it's hard for you to play a build like this in Conquest. But in threes, it's going to be a little bit more doable because you can, basically if you want to play Power Mesmer, dueling and domination are kind of necessary. And if I'm going Chrono, then I can't really go any sustain there. So you make up for that with having a support in threes because every comp usually has a support. And then you can focus on doing massive boon rip and just doing the job of your specified role. So let's talk about Chrono. The build, I take Marauder with Scholar. You just want as much damage as possible. You don't go Zerker though. I mean, you could, but I feel that Marauder is good enough. On Sword Shield, I have Energy Cleansing. You want as much cleansing as possible because you don't really have that much. And then on Greatsword, you have Exposure Energy. So you want double energy because that's your clone generation on Deceptive Evasion and just your survivability in general. And you want Exposure because of the domination synergy with fragility and just, overall vulnerability is really good. So for the traits, I take Dueling. You get Phantasmal Fury, Blinding Dissipation, and Deceptive Evasion. You also get a lot of Fury from just having this, and you get some Vigor. Mainly what you want dueling for is the Fury, so that's pretty important. You'll get pretty much a really high uptime of Fury, and that gives you crit chance, which gives you damage. And you'll get Vigor, which gives you more dodges, and because of Deceptive Evasion, you create a clone when you dodge, and creating clones when you dodge is really important, especially for Chronomancers, because you can't really, you don't have illusionary persona on Chrono anymore, which is one of the main reasons why it's been nerfed so hard. But there is, a need for a trade-off, right? And I think that, illusionary persona needed to go. So basically what illusionary persona is whenever you shatter, it uses your character as a clone. But Chronos don't have illusionary persona, so they need a clone out to use any of their shatters. So having easy access to clone generation just on dodge is really necessary for you to be able to make plays and stuff like that on the flip of a switch. So yeah, that's really necessary. Blinding Dissipation I like because your F2, while you're not going to be using it that much, it does give you the ability to make plays, and you do want to use your shatters even if there's not a specific play you want to make, just because you get value from being a Chronomancer and getting alacrity from shattering. And Fencer's Finesse doesn't really give you anything because when you're in Sword, you're really not creating clones and just letting them stick out there. You're kind of like doing big combos and then you're shattering. So you're really not stacking up the Fencer's Finesse that often and not for that long. And the Sword cooldown, yeah, it's nice, but it's not really that necessary. And Blinding Dissipation can allow you to get stomps and stuff like that because it's not like you have distortion anymore. You have Continuum Rift, and you're going to Continuum Rift for a stomp? That's kind of yikes. So yeah, having Blinding Dissipation to stomp people is pretty nice. And yeah, that's pretty much dueling. So in Domination, you have Bountiful Blades, so that makes your Greatsword 4 now create 2 Phantasmal Berserkers, and they'll do less damage, but there's 2 of them, so it's more damage overall. And these are really good because it's just if one hits and then like 2 of the attacks get blocked, then it does way less than 33%. So having more hits, not only does it do more damage, but it's less counter playable, in other words, is what I'm trying to say. And then more additional mirror blade bounces is really nice. Even though the damage reduction keeps stacking up, you still get more might and vulnerability, which allows your shatters to do more damage, so that's really nice. And you get a lot of vulnerability just from dazing people and interrupting them, and then your vulnerability actually gives you more synergy, because each stack of vuln is 1/2 increase, so you get 1.5 increased damage per vuln stack on your target. So you can get 37% increased damage when the target has 25 stacks of vuln. And lastly, we have vicious expression. So whenever you disable a foe, you remove a boon, and you deal 15% increased damage to foes without boons on them. The damage increase is actually not that noticeable, because there's always going to be boons out there, especially in like 3s where people are just giving each other boons constantly. But even if you don't get that, just the fact that you're disabling people all the time and removing boons and doing your job is really important. So yeah. However, you do often get the damage increase during your Gravwell combos, because you're disabling someone, you're stun locking them, and that often can get you a big damage increase when you want to see that damage the most, right? Because during your Gravwell combos, that's when you're disabling them the most, removing the most boons, and when you want to be doing your biggest damage combos. So that's pretty good there. Also, you have Shattered Concentration, so whenever you shatter, you'll remove a boon. That's really nice, because shatter skills are actually AoE, except for Time Sync. So Rewinder and Split Second will remove boons in an AoE, so like in team fights and stuff like that, you're removing quite a bit of boons. And it's just really nice because it's synergy with Vicious Expression, right? You can get them to 0 boons sometimes and get that extra damage increase. So yeah. It's also just really nice to be able to remove boons in general, because it not only lowers their sustain, but it also lowers their damaging capabilities. So in a way, this is the highest utility, and if you're going to try to run like Egotism, it just like it doesn't give you any utility really. So always take Shattered Concentration. And yeah, that's pretty much Domination. Lastly, Chronomancer. So Chronomancer is very interesting. Obviously, I think that they should probably return Continuum Shift to be like an F5 and then give them Distortion back, because Chrono is a little bit one-dimensional, and I'll talk to you a little bit about how Continuum Rift works. But basically, it's too easy to play around a Chrono, because their Continuum Rift is basically everything. It's their defense, their offense. So if they split it back up, or even just let them have Distortion on Continuum Rift still, and then gave them Distortion as well, then Chrono would actually be good again, even though they don't have Illusionary Persona. So yeah, that's my suggestion to make Chrono good again, is just give them Distortion back, just flat out. But this is what we're working with, and I actually still enjoy Chrono, so it's kind of fun. So anyways, in the Chrono tree, we're going to be taking Time Catches Up, because super speed on your clones is really important, because you don't have Illusionary Persona, and that means that when you want to land your shatters, you can't just interrupt someone by just standing next to them. You need your clone to actually get up there for your interrupts to be when you want them. So super speed allows your shatters to not only just land, but for you to be able to time them when you want them. It allows you to make plays and stuff like that. And also the damage increase on your shatters on movement impaired foes is kind of nice. So you do get cripple and immobilize on some of your abilities, but if you're in 3s, right, your teammates can also give that. So the extra damage increase on your shatters is pretty nice, because one of your biggest damaging abilities is a shatter skill. So that's really nice. And obviously whenever you shatter, you gain alacrity. So that's another thing, is you're gaining a lot of alacrity with Chrono. And how alacrity works is it just gives you 25% skill recharge rate. So every second that passes by that you have alacrity on you, 1/4 of that second is added in cooldown recharge. So yeah, like if I get, it says 1.5 seconds here of alacrity, then that's basically amounting to, you know, a little bit over 1/4 of a second of all my cooldowns. And that may not sound like a lot, but it's all of your skills, right? All of your skills get that. So it allows you to just make more plays to have constant alacrity, and that's why I've taken lost time. So whenever you gain alacrity whenever you inflict slow. It's a 3-second ICD, but it also has a 3-second duration. You don't really have that much slow to have it permanently, but that's why it's nice that you have shatters to give you alacrity as well, and deceptive evasion to allow you to shatter quite often. So you have a very high uptime on alacrity, and alacrity gives you more damage because your damaging skills recharge faster, and it gives you more sustain, so you can use your heal skill more often as well. So, and obviously blink is on a lower cooldown when you have alacriity, so just everything flows better when you have alacriity, so it's just nice to have. And then I have danger time here. You gain increased crit chance and crit damage to slowed foes, and that's just really nice because nothing here really gives you that much. The improved alacrity is doesn't really give you that much. And yeah, the danger time is nice because you do give out quite a bit of slow, and this gives you, you know, a damage increase because you're gonna have Fury most of the time, right? So 70% crit chance with Fury, and then on top of that you're going to have danger time. So whenever you're hitting a foe that's slowed, you're gonna have like 85% crit chance. So yeah, that's really nice because you want to be doing massive damage when you want to do that damage. So yeah, that's really good. And time marches on is really nice too because it gives you a 25% movement increase. So it allows you to take Scholar runes instead of having to take a movement speed rune. And yeah, so pretty much that's the traits. So for utility skills, I use Well of Eternity as my heal because that gives me Condi Cleanse, and this build really needs Condi Cleanse, but you have to kind of play around it. So like it gives you Condi Cleanse pulse while standing in the well, but also that'll restrict your movement if you have to stand in that well. So sometimes if the heal is more important and your mobility is more important, you want to like precast your well over there and then walk into it, and in that way you kind of have to premeditate where you want to be, but then you also lose your Condi Cleanse. Or you can put it on top of yourself and then use like, you know, Blurred Frenzy to survive long enough until it ticks. And then Decoy I take because it's a stun break, and it also gives you a clone, so it's better than Signet of Midnight for Chronos because you need that on-demand clone sometimes, and it'll allow you to make shatter combos when you're really not thinking that you might have needed a clone for that moment. So another thing is when you're in Continuum Rift, just using Decoy is kind of like a free clone for your combo because as soon as you leave Continuum Rift, you'll get Decoy back anyways. And then Arcane Thievery is really good because it steals boons, so it's more synergy with Vicious Expression, and then it transfers Condis, so that's just more Condi Cleanse that is really needed. And then it gives Slow, which will proc Lost Time, and then it'll give you Quickness. So yeah, there's a lot of synergy with Chrono on Arcane Thievery, so it's just really nice. And then you have Blink, so that's just really good. Pretty much every Mesmer build wants to take that. So next you have Gravity Well. This is kind of like the whole reason you take Chrono. It's a really long cast time, but what you can do with Gravity Well is you usually want to use your Tides of Time into the Gravity Well. so that you can land your whole gravity wall on them. And it's a really long CC and it gathers enemies together, so that's kind of when you want to like do your big burst combos. And yeah, so let's talk about the weapon skills. So Tides of Time gives you alacrity on the outgoing pulse, and then it gives, and for the sword skills, yeah, Blurred Frenzy, you have to remember that Blurred Frenzy doesn't really do that much damage anymore, so unless you really need the evade, don't use it. Just use your auto attack. The auto attack is really good because the first 2 strikes give Vallun, which is really nice, but then you'll see that the 3rd strike has a really good modifier if the target doesn't have boons. So yeah, see, Mind Spike, damage without boons, 1500, and so that's really good with Vicious Expression. During like your big gravity well combos when they have no boons on them, you can get a lot of damage from Mind Spike just by auto attacking, and that's way more damage than Blurred Frenzy because you got the first 2 hits adding up as well. And it'll also remove a boon if they have boons, but they'll do a lot less damage. So yeah, save Blurred Frenzy to do evade, and then use Mind Spike if you really want to do big damage. And then Illusionary Leap is just really nice for setting up your combos. So you want to do like Tides of Time, which is a quickness on the outgoing pulse, and then it is a alacrity, and it recharges the skill by 10 seconds if you catch the 2nd pulse. So that's really important to have your positioning on that, and it'll stun twice, which is 2 boon rips because of Vicious Expression. And yeah, it's kind of like your combo enabler, right? So as I just showed you, you'll use Illusionary Leap, and then you'll precast Tides of Time into that, and then pour it in, right? And then you get a nice CC there, and then often you'll already have illusions up, and then you'll do your gravity well into Continuum split. For a Greatsword, you have your auto attack is really good because it helps to deal damage while you're waiting for your bursts. So the further you are away, the more damage it does. So you can be safe and wait for cooldowns from afar. Mirror Blade it gives you a clone when you hit the target, and it gives Vallun and Might to allies. So it bounces between allies and enemies, giving Might to allies and Vallun to foes. But if you are the ally and the foe is only one person, it stacks up Might on you and Vallun on one target, so it allows you to get really good burst if you can isolate people with this. So you kind of want to be in melee range when you use Mirror Blade, and it can give you something like this, and yeah, it's 9 Might and 9 Vallun, which is really good. I think it actually did more Vallun there. It was like 12, but yeah, it stacks up the damage if you can just get it between 2 targets, and it does less damage per bounce, but that's completely fine because you want to get a lot of the Might and the Vallun anyways for landing other skills. Mind Stab is really nice for just poking and preventing people from kiting. You can often use this near the beginning of a match because crippling, or an encounter, because crippling people often promotes them to use their dodge rolls because they want to get movement even though they're slowed. And after they dodge, you want to use Berserker. So Phantasmal Berserker is one of your heaviest hitting skills, but you want to wait until they use their dodge first because this is the one thing that everyone dodges. And what it'll do is it'll send out a little Greatsword effect, and then 2 Phantasms will come out because of Bountiful Blades, and they'll do massive damage. And the first thing that it sends out before the illusions come out is the Boon Rip. So you'll remove 2 boons on that first strike, and then the Phantasms will come out. And you get 2 Phantasms from this, so this is really good for setting up combos. So you'll use your Phantasmal Berserker, and then you've already got 2 clones, and then you can start like doing a Continuum Rift already off of 1 dodge. So yeah, it's really good. Illusionary Wave is a just nice knockback CC. You want to use this to keep people off of you, or to like push people together to like land big combos. So like for example, I can do this and then Gravity Well 2 people together and stuff like that. So yeah, just controlling space and time. That's how Chronomancers work. And yeah, that's pretty much the weapon skills. So your shatters, whenever you have clones out, you can shatter, right? So your clones will go in and then do damage in an AoE on the first 2 skills. Split second is your mind rack. It'll do damage, but it'll do more damage if they're slowed. So what you want to do is often not use this skill until you've used time sync, because time sync is a daze and a slow. So it'll also give vuln. So oftentimes what you'll do is you'll start fights and then you'll gain clones, and then you'll use time sync to interrupt them, remove boons, and put on slow. And each hit of the shatter gives 2 seconds of slow, so you get a decent amount of slow there. And then if you still have slow on them by the time you get to your next shatter combo, you can land split second, and that'll do a lot more damage, because first of all, they'll have less boons, so no protection, and then they'll have slow, so they'll get 33% more damage. So that's usually the priority there. And then obviously Rewinder is just kind of like your last shatter that you'll do to just remove boons and blind, and it does a little bit of damage. And then lastly we have Continuum Rift. So this is the big brain ability of Chronomancer. Whenever you use it, it requires clones to shatter it, right? But you gain 1 second of distortion for each clone you have, and then you gain 3 seconds of continuum split for the first clone, and then 4.5, and then 6 for the third clone. So you're not going to be distorted the full time that you're in continuum split, but it's for the beginning you will be, which allows you to land most of your combo off without being interrupted. And so basically how it works is when you go into continuum split, everything that happens in there, for the most part, like you'll gain condies and still keep them, it'll revert to the state of before you go into continuum split. So like for example, if I go in here, I have a bunch of clones out, and then I continuum split. So look where my continuum split is. I use a bunch of skills, my positioning returns to where it was, and my skill comes back off cooldown. So you want to do like massive combos in continuum split, and then you can do them again once you come out of the continuum split, and it just allows you to CC lock people for a really long time. Okay, so I'm gonna show you guys like a very idealistic continuum split combo. So I'm gonna get 2 clones up here with my dodge, and then I'm gonna cast a third clone with Illusionary Leap, and then I'm gonna precast Tides of Time in. Immediately continuum split into Gravity Well. I'm going to Arcane Thievery for quickness again. So I'm going to have quickness from Tides of Time and then quickness from Arcane Thievery. It's going to put slow on the target. And then I'm going to, because there's an aftercast to Arcane Thievery, I'm going to weapon swap to Greatsword, use the 2 skill. I'll have a clone from the 2 skill, and then I'll dodge and use Decoy for 3 clones, because I've used all my clones for continuum split. And that'll give me 3 clone shatter of split second when they have slow on them, and that'll do massive damage. So let's try and see that being done. So there you go, that's the combo. I don't know if I completely performed it, but yeah, that's the general idea. And then once you're done with landing that, you can do Phantasmal Berserker and Mind Stab. And then once you leave Continuum Split, you'll be doing that again, right? So it gives you these really long-winded combos that do lots of CC, lots of boon rip, and lots of damage. bye.